What's up, guys? What a finish to that card. I mean, Jorge Masvidal doing what he did to Darren Till was absolutely insane. Now, to be honest, I only really watched those last three fights from beginning to end. And we're going to start with that main event, man. I mean, Jorge Masvidal knocking out Darren Till 3 minutes and 5 seconds into the round, man. What do you say about this? Besides, Masvidal put it on Darren Till with an unexpected blitz at the end. Now, Darren Till seemed to have gotten the better of Jorge Masvidal in the first round. I mean, he was marching him forward. Seemed like he rushed Masvidal a little bit too quick for Masvidal's liking and caught him with that left straight right down the center and dropped Masvidal. I mean, it was a big punch. That power, man, that power in that left hand is something crazy. And Masvidal is tough. He has a chin. He weathered it. Became very defensive with his boxing. It didn't really get caught by too many other things. And after that, Darren Till had the same setups with the same attacks and the same footwork patterns. Right? He kept looking for the left hand. Sometimes he would throw the jab. I was watching with my brother, and I kept telling him how Darren Till should be throwing out the jab a lot more and tried to bait out Masvidal a little bit more than he was. Right? He kind of sat on the outside, tried to get that angle a little bit to his own right to create more leverage in his left hand. And he usually threw a left straight or a left hook and never really set that up too much. He kind of just threw it out there and kept his head straight up in the air, and that was scary. Every time he came in on Masvidal, I kept seeing glimpses of Tyron Woodley dropping him. But the straight left and the left hook were getting evaded by the same defensive move from Masvidal, and that was just him ducking it, right? It didn't matter if he was on the hook or the straight. Sometimes Till threw the uppercut, but it's not a very powerful uppercut. It's very short, and he throws it straight up in the air. You have to be really close to him, and he kind of slaps up with it. He doesn't force his entire weight up under it. So Masvidal was evading a lot of the punches, and when Till did throw those jabs, he was catching Masvidal. But it started to seem a little bit easy for Masvidal to get the hang of it, right? He caught Till with the counter shots, he caught him with the overhand right left hook, and Till ate those pretty well. But Till got caught off guard 2 times when Masvidal went after him. And what we know about Masvidal is he likes to be a little bit defensive. He doesn't like to commit at his opponents too much. Doesn't like to rush things. And the way he usually wins fights is he likes to go back and forth with that style, and when his opponent comes back at him after he goes, he relies on his defense to win those exchanges and then eventually win on points. But the 2 times he caught Till off guard was, the first time was with the takedown. He came out of nowhere. I think it was a double leg. Out of nowhere, caught Till off guard. And we know Till has good takedown defense because Tyron Woodley had a hard time taking him to the ground, and Masvidal took him down pretty easily. I think he had a knee tap in there, actually. It was something like that. And then with the knockout. And with the knockout, Masvidal completely changes tempo and completely changes tune. And that is sometimes what you need to catch the opponent when your original methods aren't working. And he threw out a jab, measured, switched stances into the southpaw very quickly. A lot of torque, a lot of explosion, fast twitch, and exploded into a left overhand. And you can see Till did not expect it at all. He put his hands forward and no head movement. Now, we know Darren Till keeps his head straight up in the air, but he usually likes to lean on punches, pull very heavy on punches, and then create distance again. He did none of that. He got caught off guard, left hand right over the top on the very tall chin of Darren Till and put him out. Now, the first left hand, I think, concussed him a bit, and then the follow-up put him out cold, and then the punch on the ground, just insult to injury. And Masvidal, man, that was impressive. That was super impressive. He shoots up in the rankings 100%. And who these guys should be fighting next? I think Jorge Masvidal has to fight Tyron Woodley. I know there's other fights out there, but that's the fight I want to see next. The winner of that should get a title shot. And if you guys don't know, my nightmare matchups, in 2018, I believe, I had Jorge Masvidal as the nightmare matchup for Tyron Woodley. So it's especially interesting to me to see how that matchup would go, how those styles will fare against each other. But Tyron Woodley putting his back to the cage, he's not going to be able to catch Masvidal like he catches other people because Masvidal is very fundamentally sound with his defensive boxing. He doesn't really make too many mistakes. And he has good counter shots, he has good takedown defense, he has good distance management, and he's a dog out there, man. If things get a little bit dicey, if they start exchanging a little bit, Masvidal is very used to those scenarios. But then again, Tyron Woodley has a knockout power, he has very strong wrestling, very explosive blitzes, so it'd be a very interesting fight. And as for Darren Till, I think he should take time off. Now, we do know that Darren Till took that Tyron Woodley loss pretty well. He looked pretty good out there, pretty confident. This one was bad. This was a shocking, terrible knockout against someone that he said he would knock out in the first round. So I have a hunch, I hope not, but I have a hunch Darren Till probably won't react too well to this one. I hope he does, though. I don't want to see a fighter ever get deterred like that. But he had so many high expectations and getting put unconscious and going out for like a minute after the knockout blow. I mean, that might hurt his ego a bit, might hurt his confidence. I mean, he got caught completely unexpected. The punches you don't see coming hurt the most. He was out for a minute after the fight, and that pretty much confirmed that. Because we do know Darren Till does have a pretty good chin. He ate that right overhand counter, left hook follow-up pretty well. I mean, he ate it and walked forward, right? He took a big right hand from Woodley. It wasn't out of it like that, right? He wasn't out of it like this fight. And Masvidal isn't as hard of a puncher as Woodley is. It's those punches you don't see coming. The blitz caught Till off guard, and that's a very discouraging thing to see in a fight when you look back at it. So I think Till should take some time off, but the opponent I would like to see him fight next is Leon Edwards. I like that fight for both of them. Leon Edwards wants that fight. That's a good stylistic matchup for both of them. I think it's a very balanced fight. And I think there could be some promotion for the fight if you're into that. And then we go to the co-main event with Leon Edwards beating Gunnar Nelson by split decision, which is insane. Who gives Gunnar Nelson 2 rounds in that 3-round fight? He lost 2 rounds 100%. Won the 3rd round with the takedown getting it to mount, but Edwards just kept the basics, man. That's what he does. He keeps the fundamentals going, doesn't make too many mistakes, and size seemed to be such a big factor in this fight. Whenever it got into clinch, whenever it got against the cage, whenever they grabbed a hold of each other, Edwards just seemed to be much stronger, much more physically imposing and effective, that is. And we know Edwards is not as good of a grappler as Nelson is. And he was going for that rear naked choke in the first round. I was getting worried for Gunnar Nelson out there, man. He seemed like he was going to get into position, but Nelson kept his back to the cage really well, didn't let Edwards to get all the way around. But Edwards was just able to take down Nelson at will against the cage. And in the distance, Edwards didn't show Gunnar Nelson too much, and it just shows his fight IQ. He didn't show Gunnar Nelson enough to where Nelson had the opening to land that counter right hand, which is the only punch he goes for. I mean, I would love to see Nelson throw something else, because that straight right hand or right overhand, because Edwards is a taller opponent, were the only things he was going to at a distance. And that is not going to catch a guy like Edwards. Edwards doesn't commit when he doesn't need to, and he has the reach advantage. There's no real need to get in Gunnar Nelson's distance, and it just played in Edwards' favor. And when it got into the clinch, that elbow, man, that left elbow that caught Nelson clean and dropped him hard, Nelson didn't know where he was at. That was quick, man. That was really quick. It was loud. I think it broke his orbital bone, or it just caused a nasty hematoma. I mean, that thing swelled up so quickly, so I think it probably broke something. Maybe a cheekbone, maybe an orbital bone, whatever it was. But Nelson came back in the 3rd round, got him to the ground with a double leg. I think Nelson should have went to single legs a lot more because of the size difference. You take the bigger man off of balance with the first leg and drive it, transition, and get him to the ground eventually. But he got into a mount really quickly, and I was surprised by that because Edwards seemed to be holding his own on the ground against Nelson, and then just get caught in full mount was pretty surprising. But then Nelson didn't really do anything. Now, a lot of people are saying Nelson himself wasn't doing anything, but could it also be that Edwards is that strong, right? We are talking about a big size difference here. And maybe Edwards' strength was just able to hold Nelson. I know Nelson probably should have committed a lot more, or at least try to get out of the grip somehow. But I think people might be undermeaning that. I mean, we're talking about Gunnar Nelson, who barely cuts to 170. He said before that he walks around like 176, and Edwards probably goes up to 190 or something. Gunnar Nelson is legitimately smaller than a lot of lightweights. I think people might be underplaying that, maybe. But it's a good one for Edwards. The judge that gave Gunnar Nelson the score, I mean, a lot of people say the English judges are terrible, but usually because they always go to their hometown guy. They gave a controversial card and scored it for Gunnar Nelson against the English. I don't know who that was, but he was not getting it right. But who these guys should be fighting next? Again, I said Leon Edwards versus Darren Till. I think it's the fight to make next. But if Darren Till takes a long time off, Edwards 100% deserves maybe a top 7 opponent. Or maybe even if Robbie Lawler isn't fighting Ben Askren, I'd like to see that fight. Robbie Lawler versus Leon Edwards. Or even Stephen Thompson, right? If he really wants to come up there, because Edwards is on a 7-win streak right now. That's a really impressive win streak. It's such a highly talented division. So if he wants to go up there against Stephen Thompson, I like that. If he likes to fight Robbie Lawler, that's a good fight too. I would personally like to see the Darren Till fight, so I'll stick with Darren Till. And as for Gunnar Nelson, I don't want to see him at 170 anymore. I want to see him go down to 155. I know he doesn't like to cut weight, and that's why he stays at 170. But he's a small guy. He's not a big guy out there. I mean, we're talking about guys like Tony Ferguson, Khabib, Kevin Lee, these bigger fighters who actually walk around heavier than he does. And they fight 15 pounds lighter than he does. I think at 155, he could do a lot of damage out there. The size difference, the strength difference isn't going to be present anymore. He's going to be a strong 155er, especially having the experience of fighting bigger men. And if he goes down in 155, which is something I like to see happen, I think him versus James Vick or Paul Felder would be excellent fights, but if he stays at welterweight, maybe him versus Rocco Martin would be a good one. A guy lower in the ranks and a doable fight, a very competitive fight. Both guys, good striking, very good grappling from both of them. I think it's a very stylistically even and balanced fight. And then we go to Volkan Oezdemir versus Dominic Reyes, where Dominic Reyes wins a split decision, and a lot of people think it's a robbery. I think it could have actually been a draw. I know people are scoring those takedowns of Volkan in the first round for him to win that round, and I can agree with that, but if they are going by the new rules, and I don't know if they were, you can actually give a case of Dominic Reyes winning the first round because of the leg kicks he was landing and some of the left hands he was landing. It seemed like he was landing a little bit more heavy on Volkan than Volkan was landing on Reyes. I know Reyes was bleeding a little bit, but that doesn't really tell you the whole story, because Reyes was catching more of the chin of Volkan, and Volkan was catching more of the nose of Reyes, so it's a little bit different. I'd rather not get hit on the chin, you know? Now, I can agree with all sides. I can agree that Volkan won the fight. I can agree that Reyes won the fight. I can agree with a draw. I don't really know how to score that fight. It was really close. I personally think it could have been a draw. I think the first round was even. Volkan won the second one, and Dominic Reyes won the third round. So it really all comes down to the first round, I think. But here's what we have to say about this fight. Dominic Reyes is not ready for Jon Jones. Getting taken down by Volkan like he did is shocking. It's eye-opening, because Reyes was known for a pretty good ground game. He was known for good wrestling, and getting taken down by a guy who doesn't really wrestle at all in his fights, and getting taken down almost every single time, that's alarming. That's really alarming, and he really wasn't getting the better of Volkan that much on the feet. I mean, he was looking for that redirecting left hand after he goes off in an angle to catch the opponent completely unexpected, and he was always just inches short, almost connecting every single time he went for it. It's just a little bit of readjustment on his distance management. But yeah, definitely not ready for Jon Jones. I mean, Jones will take him down easy. The striking seems to be in Jones' favor. I think Reyes should wait a little bit. I think he should get a couple more wins to get ready confidently to face a guy like Jon Jones, which is a hard thing to do in general. So who these guys should be fighting next? Dominic Reyes beating the number 6 ranked opponent. I mean, I think he should go up a little bit slow. So him versus Jan Blachowicz, who is number 5, I think should be a pretty good fight. I think Thiago Santos should get the title shot, so that's not going to happen. Gustafsson and Anthony Smith seem to be wanting to fight each other. So Jan Blachowicz versus Dominic Reyes seems to be the fight to make next. And as for Volkan, he doesn't fall too far because that fight was very, very close. So him versus Corey Anderson, I think, would be the fight to make next, who is the number 7 ranked opponent. That should be a good one. Now, I did miss most of the fights. I'm going to have to go back and watch them. I missed most of the Nathaniel Wood fight. I saw the finish with the rear naked choke. It seemed like he was in control for the most part. Danny Roberts versus Claudio Silva. That fight seemed to be a war. I saw some of the highlights. I saw the finish of it. Here we go again. Submission losses. You have to let him go. I think the ref said he heard a verbal tap. If I'm wrong about that, I apologize, but that fight should not have been stopped. If there's no tap, there's no verbal tap, the fighter doesn't go unconscious, or a limb doesn't get broken, you cannot stop the fight. Or you can, but it's a bad stoppage then. So, terrible refereeing. I don't know what's going on with these refs that are stopping these submissions early like this. It seemed to be a great fight, and it costed Danny Roberts, and you could saw he was heartbroken about that. It looked like he was going to win the fight, and the ref just takes that win away from him. So, terrible, terrible. So yeah, I hope you guys enjoyed the video, and if you did, make sure to give it a thumbs up. If you enjoyed my content, make sure to subscribe. I'm going to come out with my breakdown very soon, so be looking for that. It's going to probably come out tonight. I might make a breakdown of the boxing fight tonight as well, but that might come out tomorrow, and then my podcast maybe by Monday. There's a lot going on in me, back to back to back to back. A lot of content coming out. So again, thank you guys so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.